joining us now. I don't know what we've done to deserve this. He's been gone for a couple of months, but he's back. Mr. Matchroom, Eddie Hearn.
What's up, Eddie?
Well, they put some money back in the meter, so I'm here.
That's what it is. Look, so much to catch up on. It's been a while. First off, let's just talk about the big win. Lee Wood, I picked him to win Barack, as you remember, in a unanimous decision, as he did. How proud were you of his performance after, losing to the way he did to Lara?
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, firstly, Ben Davison had a good point. They boxed, 19 rounds? And Lee Wood probably lost like 3 rounds in those 19, And
right.
He just boxed. He boxed the same kind of fight as last time. Didn't make the mistake, but even more clever. Frustrated Lara. Obviously, he was downbeat because of the weight. He'd already been stripped as well. And, he just took his soul away, really. He just took his desire away, and, an amazing performance. And Lee Wood, for you guys on the other side of the pond, you might not always know that Lee Wood was like 4 or 5 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, like out of the game, like lost at domestic level, wasn't making any money. It's an incredible turnaround. And, to beat Lara at the weekend puts himself in line for some huge fights.
And that says a lot about you as a promoter when a fighter is at that level where he's pretty much out of the game. What gives you that sign? All right, I still believe in this guy. I think he can still do something in the game.
I'll be honest, Ak, I didn't think he could do it. There were times when he lost for the British title. Even when he won the British title back, I never thought he'd go on and beat and be arguably the #1 featherweight on the planet. He's 35 years old. But Ben Davison's done an unbelievable job. He's kept believing in himself. He's learned from his losses, and he's learned from his setbacks. And I see that a lot these days in fighters who are kind of like educating themselves through their troubles throughout their career. You see a lot of guys who lose early on in their career and end up coming back and actually being better. And that's what Lee Wood's done. It's an incredible story. And what I've really done is I've always liked him. So I've always given him opportunities, and he's like, boxing's a game of snakes and ladders, and he took an opportunity and kept climbing the ladders, and now he's pretty much at the top of the ball game.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, we seen in the first Lara fight that he's a good fighter. He's a very, very good fighter. But I want to talk about somebody you definitely had confidence in since the beginning. You partner up with him, and that's Devin Haney. Devin Haney versus Lomachenko. I never heard your opinion on that fight. A lot of people are saying that Loma won. Some people are saying Devin won, but at the end of the day, Devin won. How do you feel about that fight?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I haven't watched the whole fight, like round by round. I've seen a lot of heavy highlights. Sounds like and looks like a very close fight, right? Okay. I hate it when people say, oh, it was a robbery. I had it 115, 113 Lomachenko. I don't understand this narrative at all. Right. Also, with Devin's push at the weigh-in, some people kind of like, Devin starts a couple of rounds down in people's minds anyway. So any close round, they're going to give it to Lomachenko. 3 judges all had it for Devin Haney. Pretty consistent scoring. Looks like 116, 112 was wide. Yeah. But, at the end of the day, you can't knock this young man. He's wanted that Lomachenko fight for about 4 or 5 years. He had to go to Australia and fight Kambosos twice. Did that, came back, boxed Lomachenko, beat Lomachenko. This guy has to be mentioned now as a pound-for-pound fighter. Right. And, he called me the other night. We had a great conversation. He wants to fight Regis Prograis. It's a tremendous fight. He wants to move up to 140. He wants a belt. And, I said to him, he's got to be a little bit careful because part of his value right now is that he's undisputed. So when he moves up a division, that's the risk that he's taking from there. But he has identified Regis Prograis as the fight that he wants. I think it's an unbelievable fight. Regis loves the fight. Obviously, he's got Zarilla first on June 17. He's got to smash him to pieces, and he's got to shout out Devin Haney. We've got to get them guys together. We've got to get the right number for both guys, and I believe we can make that happen.
Is there any reason why you haven't sat down and watched the entire fight? Is it just time? Just haven't had time?
Time, really. I don't, I watched, 3 or 4 minutes of highlights of that fight from a highlights package. I can pretty much see how the fight plays out. I don't need to, it wasn't my fight. I don't really have an opinion on it. Devin won. All 3 judges scored it for Devin Haney. I said in the build-up to this fight, Devin Haney's going to win a unanimous decision. He did. On we go.
So it's not true. There were rumors saying that he signed a multi-fight deal with Top Rank 2 days before the fight. That's not true. Those are false rumors.
No, not true.
As a promoter, though, because of the big fights that's still at 135 for Devin, like a Shakur fight or like a Tank fight, which probably would be the biggest, wouldn't you advise him to stay at 35 and, to your point, to keep the undisputed crown?
Yeah, but he can't do that forever. You know, we know how tight he is at 135. He's been tight for about 5 years at 135. Also, once you become undisputed at 135, he now wants more legacy. He wants to be a 2-division world champion. And by the way, the reality is the Shakur Stevenson fight isn't that big.
Right.
And it's a really tough fight. Like Shakur's established himself, I think, as arguably number one without really fighting anybody of note in the division yet. But he's a great talent. And Tank can do the fight at 140 anyway. He's just done a fight at 136, you know. But I don't know. I think Tank against Devin Haney is a great fight. But I think he wants to move up and try and become a 2-division world champion, and would be happy to help him do that with Regis' program.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Sounds good. Okay, there's a lot of stuff going online. You know, Tyson Fury, he says a lot of crazy things. Well, one thing he's saying now that people are saying is capping, is he's lying, is he sent a contract to you guys, I guess maybe to 258 management or maybe to you, about him fighting Anthony Joshua. Is there any truth to that? No truth in that at all. He didn't send a contract to us, 258, Anthony Joshua. What happened was George Warren sent us an email to say, look, we'd like to talk about the fight in September. Same terms as last time. We had some positive conversations. What do you think? Yeah. I called him straight up and I said, look, we're planning our fight in August and we're planning on fighting Deontay Wilder in December. Wow. So it's very difficult for me. I spoke to AJ about it. He said, isn't he fighting Jai Opetaia or Dempsey McKean or John Jones? You know, he's been fighting 3 guys in the last 4 days. Right. So AJ said, look, I can't put my trust in cancelling my August and December fight to fight this guy in September when we just don't know, like, do you trust him? I said, look, I know they would like to discuss the fight. So it's my job to go through that process with George Warren and see the legitimacy of it. Obviously, we see what happens in Saudi this week. They want the Deontay Wilder fight. AJ's got that in his head. It's a huge fight, huge money fight. And he's got the fight in August, which will develop him ready for that fight with Derek James. And so that's our plan. And we're not going to deviate from that plan on the basis of some Instagram hope. But it's also my job to go through the process to see how real that opportunity is. And if August and particularly the Deontay Wilder fight doesn't materialise, absolutely, he'll fight Tyson Fury next. So August would be maybe like a Dillian White or what?
Correct.
Okay.
Now is that fight against Deontay Wilder on the card that everybody's been talking about? We've heard, I've seen an interview with Amir from Skill Challenge, and he said also that that's a fight that Saudi Arabia has offered, that Prince Khalif has offered on the card with Tyson Fury and Usyk. Is that true?
That's what they want to do, but we've been told that our fight precedes whatever happens with Tyson. So look, we all know AJ against Wilder is a dream heavyweight matchup. It's one of the biggest in the sport. Yeah. And we're up for that fight. We've committed to those conversations. There's been conversations, and we'll see, as I said, what happens with Saudi this week. But we need obviously a formal contract for that, which they're working on. But that is our plan. You know, ideally Dillian White in August, Deontay Wilder in December. If there is an opportunity to do a Tyson Fury fight and we have to scrap the other two, I'm sure that'll be looked at as well. But it's the confidence to move forward. We don't want anything to get in the way of AJ's plans. He's in camp now in Texas, training for his August fight.
Right. Well, look, I was just in Texas a few weeks ago in Dallas, and I spent some time with Derek James and Errol Spence. You know, it's true what you were saying about how they train. So I would think that maybe the Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence fight, you're probably going to side with Errol now because he's part of your AJ team. No.
Well, no, I do like Errol. I mean, Errol's big break come on our card against Kell Brook that night in Bramall Lane. He was amazing, and you know, obviously I like Derek James a lot. But if I have to pick one, I just believe Terrence Crawford wins that fight. I think he's more comfortable at 147 pounds. I think he has a great mindset. I think he's extremely confident as well. And I think he wins the fight on points. But it's a great fight. I mean, such a great fight for boxing. I'm so happy it's been made. But you know, although we've got a foot in the camp with Derek James, if I have to be truly honest, I think Terence Crawford just edges a very close fight.
And I respect that. Now, we all know that Tank versus Ryan supposedly did a 1.2. There were reports that said a 1.4. So I'm not sure. It did very well in terms of pay-per-view numbers. In the past, you've said yourself that Terence Crawford, Errol Spence is probably the best matchup in boxing, or one of the best, but it won't do that well, like over $1 million. Can you predict what do you think that fight does now?
I mean, look, you never know. That I'm hearing everything from 800,000 to 1.2 million for Tank against Ryan. Like, who knows? Right. Say it did $1 million. Right. Errol Spence and Terence Crawford is not as big as that fight. You know, the difference is those guys are older. They never built a fan base. They don't have a huge social media presence like the other two. They've never been consistently selling out shows like Tank has. I think it still does great numbers. I think it does 500,000, 600,000, which is still, listen, that's unbelievable.
That's great numbers.
But, you know, Tank against Ryan Garcia really outperformed itself. Two clashes of fan bases. It had everything. Yeah. But I don't think 600,000 would be, you know, a bad night at the box office for those two. I think it's a tremendous fight, and I'm sure it'll get the respect it deserves.
Yeah, I think Errol Spence, since the Mikey Garcia fight, has been selling out every venue. But I want to talk about Lawrence Okolie and Chris Billum-Smith. Truthfully, Eddie, we know we always get the truth from you. What were you thinking when Lawrence Okolie lost that fight?
I thought Chris Billum-Smith would win the fight, honestly.
Oh, you did?
Everything was set up for him to win that fight, right? It was down in Bournemouth. It was at his home football club. There was 12,000, 13,000 fans, all Chris Billum-Smith fans. Lawrence Okolie is coming off a quick turnaround. Just, you know.
I just can't help but believe if you were still with Lawrence Okolie and you were cool, you'd be like, you know, his power is too much for Chris, because that's what I was thinking.
No, but you got to understand, one, Chris Billum-Smith is very strong. He's very good on the inside, as in he's strong on the inside. That's how you beat Lawrence Okolie. If he lets you tie him up, you couldn't see he couldn't tie him up because he was getting bumped off, pushed off. Then he would hold again. Then he would lose points. Then he was like, and he you know, he can get hurt. And Chris Billum-Smith's a puncher. There was always the risk that Billum-Smith gets knocked out in that fight.
Yeah.
But I just felt that Chris Billum-Smith would be too rough and tough for him. Yeah. And
he made him fight his fight.
In Bournemouth with everything, I just, you know, I wasn't surprised. And it's a great win from Billum-Smith because he was never one who you would have called out to become a future world champion. But he's worked very hard, great consistency over the years, and a big win for him and the McGuigan gym.
No doubt,
Eddie,
definitely.
talking to switching gears real quick, talking to Jake Paul in Dallas, he kind of teased something to us, saying that he's about to sign a fighter that potentially could be the biggest star in the sport of boxing. So Barack and I were just throwing some names out there. We guessed Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney. Have you heard any rumors about a big name that's going to be signed to MVP Promotions?
Absolutely none. No, sorry.
I mean, if wanted Jake, to snitch, like anyway.
If Jake's saying that, it could be anyone from a 1-0 prospect to Floyd Mayweather. I don't know.
He said that people are going to know who this guy is. But anyway, all right, look, let's talk about Mr. Canelo Alvarez. Obviously, big turnout in Mexico in his last win. We've been waiting to see if Bivol is going to accept the fight at 175. He wants it at 168. What's the latest on Canelo Alvarez's next opponent in September?
I'm due to see him next week. He still wants Bivol. We're in negotiations for that fight right now. But obviously, if that can't get made, and you'd hope that would get made certainly by the end of June, but probably in the next 2 weeks, really, he'll start looking at other options, and we would even present other options to him as well. But my instructions are the same. You know, we still want Dimitri Bivol. You know, you saw he had some chats with Samson Leskovich, Benavidez's manager and promoter. That's definitely a fight that could materialise. I don't know, but for now, instruction remains the same, and we're negotiating with both sides.
So plan B is Benavidez?
I don't know. I mean, I think that if he can't get Bivol, he'd then look at all options, and Benavidez would definitely be one. But right now, you know, the messaging is the same. We want to try and avenge a defeat against Dimitri Bivol.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I would love to see Canelo versus Benavidez. That would be the fight that everybody probably wants. But I wanted to know something. Let's just say Edgar Berlanga beats Quigley. Quigley's a tough fight for him, but let's just say he beats Quigley in spectacular fashion. Now, I know Edgar told us he probably needs 2 big fights before he can get that Canelo fight. Would you think Canelo would even think, you know what, if he beats him, maybe I could do that Mexican-Puerto Rico rivalry and fight Berlanga?
Yeah. I mean, look, if it was a thrilling performance and a huge knockout, he puts his name in the hat. I think with one more credible victory from a top 10 guy, that fight becomes a mega fight. You know, Mexico against Puerto Rico, Berlanga. You know, you got to look at like Teofimo against Josh Taylor, really struggling at the box office at the theatre. Edgar's fight's nearly sold out already, you know. But he's a big star. But it all depends on the performance. If he goes in there and ices Jason Quigley, you know, maybe a few people go, do you know what, that's a fun fight. But I don't think it's on Sal's radar right now. But it will be all eyes on June 24th. And if he comes through and gets another big win, I think he's right up there as a candidate.
Who's the other big win, Eddie? I know you're planning ahead. You have to think ahead, at least. Who do you think would be a step up from Quigley, and then a name big enough to say, okay, if you beat this guy, we'll make this. I mean,
could be a John Ryder, you know, could be a
Munguia,
could be a Golovkin. I mean, you know, there's loads of guys that, you know, you would put you in as a credible challenger.
Right.
Could be a Billy Joe Saunders back then later in the year. I don't know. Like, it's got to be someone who's been there or thereabouts. And you know, Jason Quigley's been there or thereabouts, but there's still a level above him, obviously, before you get to the elite stuff. So all eyes will be on Madison Square Garden. There's a lot of pressure on Edgar Berlanga because he needs to win well that night.
Right. Now, really quickly, we all know that Regis, this is Matchroom Now, big fight in New Orleans on the 17th. You mentioned Teofimo Lopez and Josh Taylor. Is that a fight you guys are going to pursue after the 17th for Regis Prograis, should he win?
Yeah, we'd like to. But obviously, you know, I think Jack Catterall, great performance at the weekend. I think that's a great fight for Regis. But he's going to want the biggest fights out there, whether that's a Mateus unification. But now with the Devin Haney discussions, I think that's the fight that he'll be looking to make. You know, it's a massive fight. Do it in Vegas. And let's be honest as well, Haney against Regis is a great matchup for American boxing. But obviously I'm under a lot of pressure from the UK fans as well, so that Catterall gets his well-deserved shot. So let's see how Regis goes June 17th, and he'll be in a big fight October, November.
All right.
That was good to me.
Thanks for taking the time as always, Eddie, and don't stay away so long next time.
See you soon, boys.
Take care, brother.
Introducing the new DAZN Boxing Show podcast. No matter the time or the place, getting your boxing content has become easier than ever. Tune in as we give you exclusive insights, predictions, fight night recaps, and more alongside the biggest names in the game. All for free. Available globally every Thursday across all audio streaming platforms, and with new episodes dropping weekly to give you the latest news. Just type in the DAZN Boxing Show podcast, listen in, and enjoy.